Hey everyone. So in this lesson, we are going to be talking about changing the subject of an equation. Now, changing the subject of an equation is basically the concept of rearranging the equation that you already have. Now, what I mean by rearranging is basically putting it as a different letter equal to. So let's say, for example, you have y equals mx plus b. Yeah, that's your original equation. You want to change it so that x is equal to something. That's what changing the subject basically means. Okay, so one thing that we need to know is the following. The subject-specific term. What does subject mean? Subject in equation basically means the pronumeral, the letter, is on its own on one side of the equal sign, okay? So basically that x equals to something, that y equals to something, that b equals to something. That's what I want, right? But in this case, rather than it equaling a number like our last lesson, like x equals to 14 over 3 or y equals to 2, in this one here, changing the subject, is basically having x equals to another equation that it's been rearranged by. Okay, it'll make sense in a bit. One thing that before we go to, I guess, the examples, one thing that I would like to make sure everyone knows is the opposite operations of each. So for example, the opposite of addition is going to be subtraction. The opposite of multiplication is going to be division. Simple as that. Last one is going to be the opposite of a squared is going to be square root. This is important. Okay, so if you don't know the basics of this equation, is just going to be a tad little bit harder. Tad bit hard. Yeah. So let's get stuck in example number 1. Your question is going to look like the following. Make x the subject. Okay. So basically, this question basically says you've got your original equation, gx plus b equals minus cx plus 5. You need to rearrange it so that it looks like x equals to something. Yeah. So this is what we're going to do the following. One thing that I like to do is this. I want x to be by itself. So if I want x to be by itself, I'm going to move any x's in the equation to the left-hand side. Okay. In this case, this negative cx, okay, it's on the right-hand side. I want to move it to the left. For me to move something in an equation unit, I need to do the opposite of it. So in this case, right, negative cx, the opposite of it is going to be plus or positive cx or plus cx. What I do to one side, I must do it to the other. Balance it out. That's equations. Okay. This will cancel out. I'm left with now cx plus gx plus b equals to 5. Simple as that. My next step is going to do the same. I've got my x's or all my x terms to one side. I now need to get rid of anything that's not x related, which is this plus b. I need to move it to the right-hand side. Right, for me to move it to the right-hand side, I need to subtract it. Because if it's plus b, the opposite is going to be minus b. Plus b minus b is going to be 0. So what I'm going to be left with on the left-hand side is cx plus gx equal to 5 minus b. Yep. So far, okay. Now, I want my goal to be make x the subject. So it means x equal to something. Now, how do I get from this line to the final goal? Well, I've got cx plus gx on the left-hand side. Let's use something that I already know, maybe something that I've learned in algebra. HCF, highest common factor. Is there a highest common factor between those two terms? Yes, x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put x on the front, put a bracket. If x is taken out of cx, what am I left with? C. If x is taken away from gx, what is left? G. So x bracket c plus g equals to 5 minus b. Simple. Yeah. Now, I know that x and that bracket there, there's an invisible multiplication sign. So for me to get from x multiplied by c plus g to x equal to something, I need to divide it. I need to get rid of this c plus g by dividing it. What I do to one side, I must do it to the other. This will cancel out. And now my final answer is going to be 5 minus b over c plus g. That's my final answer. Okay, so that's example number 1. Let's go to example number 2. Example number 2 says, make y the subject. So now it's not x the subject, but y. They can ask you any letter as long as it's in the equation. Okay. The original equation says y over t equals to a plus z over y. Okay. So one thing that you learned from year 7 or year 8 is that whenever you have an equation or two fractions, one on the left-hand side, one on the other, and it's equal to each other, you can use this method called the butterfly method, or it's other known as cross method. Now, cross method or cross multiply. Yeah, just by the name, it's basically crossing the fractions like this. So these two are pairs, right? And then the other side, that's another pair. I did it in different colors so that you can see. Cross multiply. Hopefully you see the cross, the multiply part. It's just this. Yeah. So I'm multiplying the ones that I've crossed together, the ones that I've paired in different colors. So in this case, in the green, right? And when we put the ones that are in the green on the left-hand side, so it'll look like the following. Y times y. Okay. I'm multiplying those two. And then the other side is going to be t times bracket a plus z. Okay. That was a dodgy z, but so on. Hopefully that makes sense there. Yeah. Now y times y, we can simplify it as y squared equals to, we learned this here on the right hand side, t times a plus z. It's in brackets, so to remove the brackets, I need to use FOIL or these arrows here. Okay, t times a gives me ta. T times z is going to give me positive tz. Perfect, so far, okay so far. My goal is to have y equal to something. Now, for me to get y equal to something, what do you think I need to do to get from this line to y equals to? Well, I've got this squared here. What's the opposite of squared? Square root. So what I need to do is square root this side to get rid of the squared, to cancel it out, and square root the other side, right? To make sure it's balanced. All right, this is what I'm going to do. The squared and the square root on the left-hand side cancels out. I'm left with y. And my answer is going to be, if you can't see it at the moment, it's going to be square root ta plus tz. That's it. Super easy. Yeah. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.